Fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren, Mr. Dave at North Rose. Reacher Martino is here.
I'm the short reacher.
Short reacher. Yeah, that's all right. Tim, that other guy did it, right? What was his name?
Tom Cruise.
Is that his name? I keep forgetting.
I'm shorter than he is.
You're shorter than he is.
The short reacher.
You could be his stand-in, you know.
I have to. I need, actually, to reach, I need to stand on a box.
This is the reaching for reacher.
Reaching for reacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mini me. Remember that?
Mini reacher.
$1 million. Okay. Anyway, no, this is silly. Here. This is supposed to be a serious show here. Come on.
Yeah.
It's serious.
Yeah.
Speaking of serious, we've got a serious writer who's up there, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, and it's just like, anyway. No, we're talking about a new release of Nearly Departed in Deadwood, which is the Deadwood humorous mystery series, and it's the book one, but it comes out in hardcover. So she's got something very hard here to say. Anne Charles.
Hi, you guys. Thanks for having me back. And yes, Nearly Departed is out in hardcover, spruced up. You know, I don't even want to say how long ago. It's been over a decade since I wrote that book. And one of the things I had to do when I went through it was there's a scene where a phone falls and the battery pops off the back. So that tells you, you know, when that book was written. So I had to go through and kind of modify those things to make this thing, you know, more timely, so it doesn't, you know, limit you. When you write a historical, that's the wonderful thing. If you do it well and the readers don't hate it, but you don't have to worry about how things change present day. Or if you write a futuristic, you know, and you make up your own gadgets, you don't so much have to worry about present day. But if you write contemporary, everything keeps changing.
Well, where's the end game then? It'll never end.
It will never end. You have to, you know, go back and tweak maybe once again. I had a reader more recently say, well, the real estate agent business is a little different now. It doesn't, you know, quite work that way. It's like, well, I can only change so much, you know, or every 5 years I have to go back and, you know, tweak to get it, you know.
Well, how do you determine what you're going to change? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, because you got real estate and they got this and that. Like, what do you?
Well, I took, you know, some of it. I did reply to that person and said, it's a small town. It's a small, you know, we're not talking a big city with a big modern day, you know, with all the techie gadgets.
Did you swear at them too when you wrote?
Maybe in my head. But so I just, you know, anything I could change that was pretty minor and didn't affect the story, because it's the same story. It's just everything's been updated. It's a little smoother. I wrote that book back in 2007. 15 years ago?
Wow.
So I've changed.
18 years.
No.
Yeah, I was getting close to 20. 20.
So there's you know, some things of my own writing, but you know, one of the rules that they tell you early on when you're an author is, you know, don't go back and change that early stuff too much, because there was a spark, especially if it was a popular story. The book had an energy to it. And you don't want to go in and try to smooth off the edges all the time, because it can ruin, you know, the uniqueness of the story.
Well, I'm glad your books had an energy.
Well, was it difficult, you know, with revisiting that story and deciding, oh no, I can't change, you know, having learned so much over the years. Well, there's some stuff I just can't change.
It was a little, you know, I had a new editor that I hadn't worked with before, and she was great. But there were a few points where I bristled. It's like, no, wait a second. This is what I meant to say, you know, and this is how I'd like it. But there were other points where I was like, yeah, we should probably clean that up just a little bit and smooth it, you know, over. So it was cringeworthy in the way of pretend you had to go back and look at lots of pictures of yourself, and maybe you were really overweight at the time and liked to wear bikinis or, man bikinis at the beach. And you'd look at that old... and you'd look at that old picture and kind of cringe and go, why was I doing that? But so uncomfortable in that way. But then at the end, the feeling of, okay, I feel better about this now. And we added a deleted scene to this one that was from that time. I truly had just cut it out. So some bonus stuff in there too to make it a little more fun, and go through it. And it's a big test for the publisher and me. If this goes well overall, then we'll keep going with hardcovers and get the series. But there's 14. I'll write 15 next year in that series, so that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
a lot of changing to bring into hardcovers. So it really depends on the readers and the audience how well it goes over. If it's worth the time and energy and finances to create this. And that comes back to me as well as marketer to get my buns out there and sing and dance and twirl about it enough to get attention for it.
I think J.D. Barker had a really good idea.
J.D. Barker, tell me.
Horror?
Oh, no.
No. He's the one that's in trouble with the horror. He's the guy that did asked all the TikTokers to pose the book and covering up.
See, I told you
their
earlier,
private parts,
I have to come to you to get my news.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm only up on the Neil, how do you say his last name?
Gaiman. Yeah, it was.
I'm up on that. I read the whole long deal about that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you should read this one. It's just as exciting.
Let's stick with me uncomfortable in the bikini, if anybody's getting in the bikini. It'll be me. It'll be bad for everybody. But I might get airplay.
Well, that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
It's how many.
I'll be like, what is she doing? Oh, my gosh.
How many hits? Well, at least they're talking about you, right? So that's all that matters.
Yeah, right.
Well, but with this world, because it's changed 20 years. We were talking about that earlier. You know how it's changed. There's, new generations come up. They have different ideas about what's good, bad, right, wrong.
Right.
So when you write a book, like a rewrite, update, do you have to, I don't want to say censor it, but maybe alter some of the, you're humorous in your jokes, and do you have to alter kind of any of it to fit today's world 20 years later?
Well, I'm trying to think in this particular book, the humor is Gen X, a lot of it, a little bit older, because that's me. That's, a lot of my references.
But our Gen X humor sometimes isn't liked, and I found this out the hard way.
Yes, that is true. I do agree. There are, I know there are words that they kind of like you to be careful using. Crazy, for example, is a word that I've been told, be careful with that one. But at the same time, crazy is crazy. And
you see, we're Gen X. Yeah, he lives it. But we're Gen Xers, us three. So when we know the humor, and we just say things like crazy or insane, and we'll say all these words that nowadays they would be, oh, you can't say that. Or
you can't say that.
And it's like, but we just do it, because we've always done it. That's the kind of thing I mean. Not necessarily that you're super offensive and you're writing all this about whatever. And
no, but I mean, the topic of this book is little girls are getting kidnapped, 9-year-old girls. So it's not like we're not talking about puppies and kittens, and they ran off and, frolicking in a field of daisies. We're talking about, a little bit of a dark topic. A lot of it's actually very dark, but I am dark humor. That is, my sense of humor is sarcasm, wit, dark, I'm not chocolate chip cookies type of humor.
Right. It's a way of dealing with it too, right?
Yeah, and it's not like my main characters go out, just whipping out all the stuff you're not supposed to say and do. They're living their life. And one of my things I've always felt since I started writing, I've had people say one of the characters that she works with, he's such a jerk. There's, nobody has ever been like this in the workplace. And I'm like, raising my hand. Yes, they have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get out of Hollywood's, fiction land and you go out in the real world, there's a lot of barbs and bruises coming. It's not all perfect. Not everybody plays the game the way you want. Yeah. And I think you have to get thick skin and learn how to handle, whether it's a commenter that's coming in and going to say a few rude things on air, or whatever. You have to be ready to handle that.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I'm answering your question at this point. Now I've gone
it all answers it. It's how you're doing it. So that's kind of what we're getting to know.
It's tough. It's tough to write. I mean, my books are not cozies, first and foremost. They're not, and by cozy I mean there's language in them. I have harsh language at times. I have some violence. I have monsters, both human and supernatural. So this is not
Well, it sounds pretty cozy to me.
I've gone places where people say, here's Ann Charles, and she writes cozy mysteries, and I'm like, time out. No, let's stop right there, because if you're coming in looking for a cozy, you're going to get offended pretty quickly, The first line of Nearly Departed, has I don't know if I can say the word.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's the first time I came to Deadwood, I got shot in the ass. So I start out like that, and I did that on purpose because I wanted you, if you're scanning through the bookstore or online, you read that first bit and you go, okay, this is the kind of story, we're going to read. There's going to be a little language here, and let's go forth, So the first book, really in the series, any series I write, that first one is going to lay the groundwork. So when you finish that book and you feel like, hey, that was a fun roller coaster ride, I didn't mind it. It was kind of crazy and wild in spots, but let's go forth with the next. You know what's coming, rather than the second book comes and knocks you down and you're like, where did this come from? The first book was lollipops and cotton candy. What's this?
Right. Well, that's the best way to catch them. This is a nice cozy and you're writing nice stuff, and all of a sudden the violence and sex comes in.
Yeah. All that,
all the gory stuff.
Well, it's just that's what comes out of my brain. What that, whether that comes from watching Humanoids from the Deep as a child or something, maybe, some of those old shows, but.
Well, yeah, you grow up in that area and you watch, and we had the music of the 80s and the 70s. You know what I mean? It all is part of it.
Yeah, yes, very much. It's, and I'm also blue collar. I grew up blue collar. So it's, a little bit different world of what we learned and experienced in small towns like that in the Midwest. Yeah, it's part of life. And I always just, tell people read the reviews if you're unsure if you want to read my book, because they'll tell you the worst and the best, and then you can figure out if it's for you.
Well, you mentioned supernatural, and so you have like ghost mysteries, women sleuths. Is kind of how it's categorized, marketing wise on Amazon. And I know I write some, it's like, action adventure, but it's also horror. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, I find that I end up in these situation where I'm like, well, what is this book? Is this book like with you? Like, is it mystery? Is it ghost horror? What is? Have you run into that? Where, at least marketing wise, it becomes kind of difficult to try to pinpoint, where to slot your book.
Yeah, right out of the gate with this baby, when it was way back when, and I was submitting to big publishers, and a lot of times I would hit walls saying, pick a team, are you mystery or are you romance here? What are you, And because they, of course, want to label it a certain way. And that's where the beauty with Amazon and the other online retailers is they came along and let you do more than one category. Finally, those of us who don't write 60% mystery, or I guess it's more like 80%. They wanted 80-20 from me instead of 60-40. It opened the door. And I will have people say, well, what is it? So I a lot of times start with humor, because that is really one of the key components in my writing is the humor. And then I'll say, now, if you want supernatural, I've got this, I've got mystery, I've got some romance. Sometimes I've got action adventure over here. I've got archaeology in the Dig Site series with a lot of, Indiana Jones feel. So I just start, I've got 5 different series. It's like, let's spin the wheel and see which one it lands on for you and what you're feeling like. So it is a little bit sometimes not as easy to just say, hey, I write cozy mysteries, with bakers, bake shops, and dogs. And I'm not picking on those. That's just kind of a category,
I'll pick on them. Let me do it.
I'm like, well, a little bit of sex, drugs, and rock and roll is thrown into the mix. So if that's not your preference, then maybe I'm not for you. It's a little bit more edgy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Well, not only edgy, but the thing is, I think the characters are more realistic.
I do try to do that. I've always wanted to have people that you feel like you've known. This could be your friend, your sister, whatever, or you want them as your friend because they flub up, they have flaws. But yet when the chips are down, they, strive and go forth and conquer if they have to, or at least try.
Yeah, because cozy mystery characters are just blah, like, Jessica Fletcher and Matlock and all those are just awful. If I knew someone, no, and I don't mean that. Listen, cozy writer, we have a lot of cozy writers come on, we interview them, have them on the show, and it's all great, plus awesome, good writers, all that. But I think the characters are just, I don't want to say boring, but they're just not real.
Well, that's just, I struggle as a writer. My brain says, well, we could have it do this, which would be more along the cozy, style, or let's have this really screw them up. And then I'm like, oh, that's so much more fun. And it's probably just growing up in the 70s and the screwed up world, and it just appeals to me. So I've often said I wish I, wrote shorter books, because my books are 120K usually, so they're the longer ones. I wish I could fit into this market better, the popular markets, but it's like my brain goes, oh, well, we're going to be a maverick and just go our own way, no matter what you think you want. So out comes, the Deadwood Mystery Series that has the supernatural, the mystery, the romance, the humor throughout, all the bells and whistles, some fighting, and starts with ghosts and it builds in the supernatural from there. Because, boy, if you open it up to supernatural, that world, instead of, for me, having mysteries that are, real life people, that kind of things, you can throw in all kinds of characters, have all kinds of mystery craziness.
Yeah, makes it, yeah, there's no, it takes away the limits, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Whatever my imagination can come up with, and boy, howdy, in that series, I've had people go, where are you coming up with this stuff? Do you drink before you, sit down to write, or?
No, you go to BC and do the free heroin.
Free heroin. But again, let's go back to Humanoids from the Deep. If anybody's seen that, it's some crazy stuff. And what's a weird thing that can happen? There you go. So I just find it so much fun to dabble in all this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, well, there was that other one. Remember there was that, I think an HBO series there for a while, with the, I can't even remember, the True Blood, whatever.
True Blood, yeah. Charlene Harris.
Yeah, that's kind of that sense too, right?
Yeah, it's a whole different type of universe, a whole different world, and what can be included. She did very well with that.
Yeah, that's what, there can be a market.
I read several Sookie Stackhouse books. I don't think I finished the series, but I read several.
Yeah. Well, so how do you get into your characters' heads? How do you get into that? Or does that just come natural for you? You just lay there in a room and you can be that character and write it?
I wish. I wish it was like that. I'll switch series. Every time I finish a book, I go to a different series because I don't want to burn out. I think if I'm bored writing the book, we got a problem. So switching series helps me stay, excited about what I'm writing. And unfortunately, that also means it takes me more time because I am fully on, in a world when I finish a book. And then I have to step back, close the door, and go in a new room, or an old room, I guess, and get back into those characters' heads. And I try to read a lot, several books in the previous, from the series, the previous books, get my brain into that mode. And sometimes that just shuts me down more because I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can write this kind of stuff. Who wrote this?
Yeah.
I mean, where were these ideas coming from? And I've got to, do a new book, and you always want to try to do better than the last, right? You don't want people to go, well, it's going downhill now.
And Charles was really good up until number 12, and then I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're always trying to hit that ball further, and do better, and have your long-term readers excited so they want the next one and the next. So it takes me a little bit of rereading, and I get past oh boy, I can't tell you how many times I've said to my husband, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I have it in me to pull this off. I think I'm going to just go back to what I started with in my long time career in life, and that was, working fast food. That seems easier right now. But then he'll say, do you realize you say this to me every time. And I'm like, I know, same old thing, 38 books later. But then I start writing. I get the ideas. I daydream a lot. I really do. I just, like you said, lay around thinking about it. And then I start, but I'll tell you, the first 3 to 5 chapters are really rough because it's a bumpy road getting back into that head, that character, those characters. And then I'll hit about the first turning point at chapter 5 and go, okay, let's go back. And that's when then I'm really getting in, and I'm in deep in their point of view. And then I can go forward. And unfortunately, that takes time. I mean, some of these amazing writers out there, they kick a book out every month or 2 months. I'm in awe because my brain is like sitting on the couch drinking beer after finishing a book for a good 4 weeks. Like, what? We're doing what? We're drinking, and we're still partying the release. So I just go a little slower. But I do, once I'm in.
That's the hardest thing, is rereading and getting back into it. I think that's got to be the hardest thing to do.
It really is. I mean, some authors will tell you it's not. I'm sure they'll tell you, oh, that's easy. I do that all the time. I run into that. People saying, oh, I write this fast, or I do this really easy. And I'm always like, well, that's really cool. Good, good on you. But that's not how this brain works.
Yeah, because I think that's the biggest struggle. For me, anyway, I find that's the worst. I always have to, I'm like you, I'll have to change, and I'll write some murder book about someone. And, because you have to do something different, right? And,
right.
And it seems easier, but that's just part of the process, right? I guess.
Yes. I mean, I'm working on the Dig Site series right now, writing the 3rd book, and oh boy, I always have told everybody it takes me a little longer to write that series because there's a lot of research, and there is Maya archaeology. What's the new stuff they're doing now? And I mean, that's just part of it. The whole Maya civilization, I have to learn so much about them again because I'm old, so it's like learn it all again, and go get that in my head so I can pull up some of the beliefs and the religion and how it incorporate, into the civilization. And then at the same time, I got to learn all the new stuff with archaeology, like LIDAR and multidisciplinary things they do now when they approach a dig, and oh boy. So that's, when it comes out, I love it, but it's like going back to college. Here I go. Let's dig in.
It seems like a big mess going through like the process, learning this, learning that, and you got to fix that, and it seems a forever sort of thing. Why don't you hire an assistant?
Yeah, I need a clone. Can the assistant plug into my brain? I mean, how do we make the brain work better?
That won't be long. Another generation or two, and they'll be.
And they'll be. My sister-in-law is actually, she has been with me for years, helping out with a lot of the marketing and other stuff that goes on to help free up my time. But there's some things maybe I'm just old, but I have to go through and learn myself. I have to sit in that class, that in my mind, the virtual class, and relearn all this stuff or the new stuff they've learned. With LiDAR and all the different new mapping, ways they can map and things they can do now to date things, it's incredible how much it's changed in the 4 to 5 years since I wrote the second book in the series, how much more they know now because of all the new technology.
Yeah, and that's what you got to stay up on, right?
Right.
Otherwise...
But yet, be careful so that in 3 years I don't have to go rewrite this book somehow.
Yeah, I refuse. Put your foot down. Say no. Just say no, I think that's the hardest thing to do is to rewrite. I've only had to do that once for a publisher, and I never want to do that again. Yeah,
it's like I said, looking back at old pictures in bikinis when I, shouldn't have been in them.
Well, I've never had any pictures of bikinis myself.
You should have.
No.
Because then you could look back and go, what was I thinking?
I don't even look at myself in the mirror now, today. I don't understand that. How can anyone do that? Could you imagine just sitting there looking? No, just say no.
No, I know. I get worse all the time. My mother, when she was still alive, she'd go, well, I don't have any lipstick on or makeup. I can't go out. And she's looking at me. I'm barefaced. Maybe I washed my face that day. Maybe not. Like, what do you mean you can't go without lipstick? But that's, her generation. That was the way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so we all grow up and do things and that. And, that's the way it is.
Yeah. How things change with time.
Yeah.
And all that good stuff.
Yeah. I don't comb my hair anymore.
What's sad is I don't often either, and you've seen my hair, so
yeah.
It's not far beyond picking leaves out of it. We're getting there.
Yeah. Well, if I had a leaf in my hair, that means I would have something.
You'd have the hair to do that, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just kind of pointless. Yeah. I worry about the shine now.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I saw that haircut you had this other day. Hey.
Yeah, in the front, you'd never know that I don't have any hair. But in the back,
I was going to say that they missed in the back.
Yeah. Pulled it all out.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did they do with the back? But I see, I was being nice. I was reserved.
Yeah.
Being reserved. Being a good person. So listen.
They waxed it.
Yeah. It's a runway now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, listen, Anne. So let's talk about where people find Anne. Anne Charles, where is she? Where do people find you?
AnneCharles.com is the simplest. That's where all the books are, all that. But I'm also, I'm out there on social media. And like I said, I've been doing a lot on YouTube. I'm building up over there. I find that, trying to write something funny all the time as a check-in on Facebook has gotten tiring and I can't reach people. So I've started doing 3 minutes-ish check-ins live. Well, not live, but I record it quick, throw it up there, and just check in with everybody that way to keep up on what's going on. And over on YouTube, and I've started, we just put one out where we were reading the Dear Reader Letter. I was reading the Dear Reader Letter of the first Dixite book, and then having fun putting, life to it in different ways. You have to go to my YouTube channel to see what I mean. So doing more and more over there to just interact with people in a different way.
Yeah.
So
it's all part of it, right? You got to keep interacting with people and
find new ways to do, some of the same stuff, I guess, but do it a different way that's more fun. So, but like I said, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those good ones.
Well, fantastic. Of course, we'll put that up with your book and everything else, and everyone. The Nearly Departed in Deadwood, and it's in hardcover now. And Anne Charles, you need to buy the book. She doesn't want to go back to fast food.
Some days, though. Some days that seems like flipping a burger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she doesn't want to go back to Wendy's. Come on. Come on there.
Yeah.
Buy some hardcovers here. It helps support. And
help support authors.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And escape that way instead of the heroin up in.
Yeah, the free heroin. Geez,
yeah.
I'll tell you.
This will be in the long run. It'll probably be better for you.
I think so. If you live long enough to remember, it might be. I don't know. What do I
No,
know?
that's true. That's true.
Well, again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me again. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks, Ann.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.